Welcome to the Quickstart Problem Solving Training and Exercise, Part 2, Problem Solving Organizational Context and Management Systems. This is a review version, the first release. If you watch this, I would very much appreciate your comments. What did you like? What would you like to see improved? As with anything we do, this can always be improved, especially with feedback by those who are using it. Here's the email address to send your comments to. Thank you. In this chapter, we're going to look at the big picture view of organizational context and its relationship to problem solving, focusing on organizational alignment and the overall lean and agile management system. Organizational context is a big, unclear phrase. What does it really mean? Let's say that you're working at the front lines of an NGO in a remote area. It may be hard to see anything but the relentless work ahead of you all day, dealing with the countless challenges and hardships you see all around you. Yet you may struggle to get things done when what feels like unproductive, wasteful effort imposed on you by various organizational dysfunctions get in your way. Attending endless conference calls, completing paperwork, trying to keep up with your overflowing inbox, and so on. It may be frustrating because you want to get your real work done, solving problems and helping people. When you work in the upper levels of management, it's just as easy to get buried in your own meetings, emails, reports, and spreadsheets, and lose sight of the overall organization and its mission. It's too easy for activities to become busy work, while goals and measurements simply become numeric abstractions that have little to do with the daily reality, and you all lose sight of the real mission of your organization. Most days, it feels like the gorilla wins. After a while, this can start to feel normal, just like hitting yourself in the head, if you do it long enough. All the wasted time, effort, energy, process failures, poor quality, dead ends, confusion, and frustration may seem like a fact of life, something you just have to put your head down and push through. People often end up in a survival mode, one individual or team against another, all competing for limited resources, rewards, and an elusive sense of accomplishment. The occasional, well-intended changes management and their consultants may introduce often just make things worse. Though the latest reorganization, management system, personnel change, or other intervention may give everyone a momentary rush of, finally, we're doing something about it, they often just fizzle for one reason or another. There has to be a better way, you say to yourself. These are all examples of what I mean by the challenges of organizational context. It's clear that the term organizational context can mean any number of things: organization structure, management systems, measurement, reporting, motivation, rewards, and punishment, and the most ambiguous term of all, culture. In this session, I'll focus on a characteristic called alignment and the management systems that make it happen. The term alignment is used frequently and often casually, while many are unable to define it. So here's what alignment means to me, what I've seen work with my very own eyes. The key to surviving and thriving in a VUCA world is the skill of autonomous individuals and teams who own their processes and their outcomes and drive their own continuous improvement and innovation efforts. However, according to Peter Senge, founder of the Society for Organizational Learning and originator of the term the learning organization, autonomy without alignment is chaos. In other words, if you empower teams without aligning them to the overall strategic intent of the organization, you've created teams of well-meaning, highly motivated anarchists. There's a balancing act between autonomy and overall organizational alignment. Each team must skillfully respond to the localized problems and opportunities, while all teams should move in the same general direction and march to the same drumbeat if they hope to scale efficiently and share learning across the whole organization, which is what today's NGOs must do if they hope to get ahead of the global challenges facing us. Here's a little more detail behind what I mean by alignment. When the organization is aligned, everyone shares and supports a common purpose that guides their decisions and actions. Those working locally also collaborate and learn from and with other parts of the organization, improving the knowledge and capability of all. Although the organization may be large, it can pivot, quickly and efficiently changing course when necessary, rebalancing priorities and resources. And it keeps value flowing through change and disruption, dealing with disagreement in a transparent, trusting, and fair manner. These conditions do not happen by accident, but by design and through hard work. Now let's examine what it takes to get there. Most of us are probably familiar with the traditional depiction of an organization as a pyramid with leadership on top. In this model and mindset, command and control flows downward, and the only information consistently flowing back up is around performance, rewards, and punishment. Did they do what we told them to do? Did they achieve the goals we set for them? In a lean and agile world, we flip this on its head. The lean and agile management system puts reality on top, since everything depends on it, especially those we serve, our customers, our beneficiaries, because they're the reason our organization exists, and they define the quality and the value they hope to receive. Next, we have the frontline teams, because they're the ones that get it done, solving problems where the work is done and working with the customers. It's the responsibility of all leaders and managers to support them, develop them, and learn with them. After all, someday it will be their turn to lead the organization forward. Senior leadership is responsible for long-term strategic view, expressed as strategic intent and plans. But these plans, also known as hypotheses, must be constantly tested and validated by reality. That's how we know when our strategy is working and when it isn't. And it's essential to understand why not. In a lean and agile organization, each dimension is engaged in a continuous dialogue with the others, creating fast feedback loops around target setting, problem solving, decision making, experimenting, and learning the way forward. How to turn strategic intent into reality. Strategic guidance flows generally from leadership to the front lines and across value streams, which we'll talk to in a moment, while feedback and learning flows in all directions throughout the enterprise. In this way, leadership sees the impact of their strategy in the real world, in real time, observing its effect on the organization and its customers. They're able to remove obstacles and continuously refine strategy to create organizational agility. And they're able to support the other dimensions as active, skilled, autonomous, and aligned teams able to solve problems and move the strategy forward in a meaningful way. As you've learned in prior sessions, Lean and Agile practice contains standard work, daily rhythm, and routine. In order to make this entire Lean and Agile management system function properly, keeping everyone aligned and flowing smoothly, not surprisingly, there are basic standard work practices at each level. For example, frontline NGO workers may deliver food or medical supplies into the field under challenging and sometimes dangerous conditions. It's important to have standards for good practices to help keep the food and medicine flowing while keeping everyone safe. There will also be important management activities they may perform on a daily basis, conducting morning huddles to prep for the day, along with other communication, collaboration, and problem-solving practices within their teams and across the entire organization. Managers spend less time managing, directing people, and issuing rewards and punishment. Their focus is on everyone's learning and development, helping them act skillfully and autonomously, and helping them overcome obstacles when they need it. Leaders spend more of their time observing the work that's being done firsthand, learning what's really going on and what support they need to provide. This is opposite from the mindset of traditional top-down command and control. To look more deeply into these desired behaviors, let's start with a simple model of an organization with frontline teams, managers, and leaders. To this familiar structure, we add horizontally flowing value streams, delivering core products and services to customers. The organization also provides a variety of shared services like finance, human resources, marketing, technology functions, and others. The customers of these services are the organization itself, so these can be viewed as internally facing or supporting value streams. There are virtually infinite opportunities for demand and supply between any of these external and internal facing value streams to become imbalanced, causing the overall resources of the organization to be out of sync and overcommitted. The management systems regulate the vertical flow of work and information that connect these value streams and shared services, helping to balance priorities and allocate scarce resources in the best way. Such a matrix of interrelated flows can be mapped as a network, like a neural network, where the individual synapses of the brain quickly adapt to changing conditions. Alignment is achieved through continuous dialogue across each synapse or interface, where problems are solved, decisions are made, and actions are taken. In the brain, the synaptic signals fire in a millionth of a second. In a lean and agile organization, it happens much more slowly, but still much faster than the arduous traditional management systems, which typically operate on a monthly and quarterly cycle. Remember, the faster you iterate your management system feedback loops, the faster you solve problems and adapt to changing conditions. We'll continue to explore this iterative management model further shortly, but now let's look at what is a common current condition of traditional management systems and the common obstacles that get in the way of alignment. You may recall learning about silos during the Fundamentals of Value Stream Flow session. And if you haven't seen this yet, I encourage you to watch it because it conveys a core principle of Lean and Agile, the smooth flow of work, the information that enables the work, and the value it delivers to its customers. The existence of strong silos in an organization is relatively easy to identify and to measure with a basic value stream map and analysis. They're a clear indication of organizational misalignment that ensures optimal value is not flowing to the customer. Silos can be departments or functions, shared services, divisions, or locations that processes flow across. Silos can also be individual programs or projects that compete with each other for scarce resources. They all obstruct flow because each silo acts as an independent entity with their own goals and rewards, and they seek to optimize their performance and thus degrade end-to-end value stream flow. Siloed thinking and behavior can become deeply entrenched in structure, performance measurement, and culture, creating resistance and friction, harming performance, and becoming a roadblock to change. It's essential for an organization to create a culture, a set of behaviors, and a problem-solving and decision-making framework that breaks down these artificial silos, creating end-to-end flow where resources are allocated flexibly where and when they're needed most. Let's explore another common obstacle to alignment through the perspective of the data pyramid we discussed in part 1. It's easy to understand how each part of a large organization can have different goals and perspectives on each situation and how they interpret the same information differently. This is quite natural in most organizations. Senior leaders are looking at the landscape with a telescope, while frontline workers are using a microscope. And often, especially within larger organizations, different levels and roles within the organization are not using the same sets of data. As a result, you may have 10 people in a room from different parts of the organization looking at the same problem, and they can all see it differently. And even when you're all looking at the same data, different perspectives yield different interpretations. While some people will argue that facts are facts and that they're black and white, that is often not the case. In Part 3, we'll explore types of problems with complex, subjective, or ambiguous conditions. But for now, let's just agree that in many cases, how we interpret facts can vary by point of view. Even a physical, measurable fact like cold versus hot is subject to interpretation. What feels hot to a polar bear may be comfortable for a camel. It depends on the individual's perspective, on where they sit, and how they see the world. In such a situation, leadership and management can become uncomfortable with the uncertainty and risk, and often try to impose order, consistency, and predictability. In other words, they try to bring the situation under control. Control is a red flag word when used in this way, and it's often done by imposing burdensome governance, compliance, policies, goals, rewards, and punishment that do not add value for the customers. Those who do it well are promoted and given authority, and the attitudes and behaviors of control are strengthened. While this may feel momentarily satisfying to leaders, they're effectively tying the hands of their teams behind their backs and sending them onto the playing field. So it's easy to understand how misalignment can persist and resist efforts to change. And it's also easy to see how harmful it can be. So back to the question, what can we do about it? Let's look at it this way. Let's say you're trying to take a team safely through the jungle. You're deep inside and you can't tell where you're going. So someone climbs to a hilltop, spots the destination, and takes a compass heading, then draws a map. They return to the team and confidently say, "I know where we're going. Follow me." But that map and compass heading doesn't help them much as they wade into the jungle because there are swamps, crocodiles, poisonous snakes, deep holes, dead ends, and other hazards that don't appear on any map. In his book, The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge shares an insight about how managers can become overly confident about what they think they know. Let me read this to you. Deep within the mental models of managers in many organizations is the belief that managers must know what's going on. It is simply unacceptable for managers to act as though they do not know what is causing a problem. Those that reach senior positions are masters at appearing to know what is going on, and those intent on reaching such positions learn early on to develop an air of confident knowledge. But be warned, there's a serious problem when you march into a deep swamp with nothing but a sense of overconfidence. In my experience working with senior leadership, I have found an emphasis on certain words that create this sense of confidence. Two in particular, commit and implement. When a leader is looking at taking a risk, they want as much certainty as possible that it's going to work. So they look for ways to hold the people conducting these experiments to be accountable to the outcomes. When you really look at it closely, there's a deep logical flaw, but it's perfectly understandable. It's human nature. So for someone to commit to desired outcomes on a project of some sort may turn to outside consultants who are very smart and presumably have done this before. But they don't talk in terms of uncertainty or experiments. They use terms to suggest a roadmap where you simply follow the rules to achieve the desired results. The most frequently used word is implementation. Whenever you hear those two words, commit and implement, stop. Question the assumptions behind them. Why? Here's one of my favorite quotes by Mike Rother. This is rather long, again, but I'm going to read it to you because I feel it's so important. Having an implementation orientation actually impedes our organization's progress and the development of people's capabilities. The way from where we are to where we want to be next is a gray zone full of unforeseeable obstacles, problems, and issues that we can only discover along the way. The best we can do is to know the approach, the means we can utilize for dealing with the unclear path to a new desired condition, which is the lean problem-solving approach, not what the content and steps of our actions, the solutions, will be. If someone claims certainty about the steps that will be implemented to reach the desired destination, that should be a red flag to us. What is Mike saying here, really? This image you've already seen a few times and will see again is from his book, Toyota Kata. And it essentially says that the only way to safely cross a swamp is to know the general direction you want to head, then cautiously make your way step by step. The leader and the team must take this journey together, learning from and with each other with each step. The first step for the leader is often the most difficult. They must learn to say, "I don't know. Let's figure this out together." Kata in Japanese means form. The practice of kata, or the practice of correct forms and postures, constitute an integral part of martial arts learning. Applying the notion of kata to organizational learning and standard work yields not just rhythms and routines for everyone in the organization to follow, but it's also a path to mastery. As we learn the steps through coaching and practice, they become habit, muscle memory. We can apply the notion of kata, standard work, practice, habit, and mastery, when trying to align an organization to achieve desired outcomes. Everyone in the organization must have a disciplined, habitual, interlocking, and complementary way of working through the daily challenges and uncertainties so they can do it together. A frontline worker must have skill and a degree of autonomy when doing their daily work, engaging with their customers, and solving problems. Whether they're hungry crocodiles or quality problems doesn't really matter. Having a map is important to know generally where to go, but as the old saying goes, the map is not the territory. But wait, what if there were a way to draw a map that does represent the territory and helps a team cross the swamp together? This is one view of what such a map looks like. This one showing various patient journeys through an emergency room. Each one of the red bursts is a problem. The simple act of getting everyone, patient transporters, receptionists, nurses, doctors, medical technicians, and other contributors together to map this process creates a shared understanding. It also changes the role of management, who is no longer responsible for telling people what to do, how, and when. They're there to support the team in improving the process. Jim Womack, the co-author of Lean Thinking, was fond of saying, "The lean manager realizes that no manager at a higher level can or should solve a problem at a lower level. Problems can only be solved where they live by those living with them." Interestingly, by doing this practice, senior leaders see with their own eyes the feedback and lessons learned from the front lines, creating a regular feedback loop that informs their strategic planning. As we explored during the Fundamentals of Value Stream Flow session, there are many ways to draw a value stream map. This map illustrates the customer experience and parallel supplier experience as two horizontal lanes. The customer journey lane is on top, and a parallel process flow is on the bottom, representing the key contributors and steps of the process. This particular map shows a customer getting their car repaired. The customer journey starts at the top left when they call to make an appointment. Then they deliver the car, waiting for it to be repaired, and pick it up. In this case, they discover the problem wasn't fixed, and so they have to take it back again. Everyone knows what this feels like. When the individuals involved in this process develop this map together, showing the steps, the problems, illuminating key data points along the way, it guides them to discover solutions for themselves. When people from a larger organization gather in a room to explore a value stream, it may be the first time all of these people have been in a room together, and in some cases it may be the first time they've met. As they collectively explore the situation, they evolve from a group of people in a room into a team that understands their process and each individual's contribution to it. And once they become a team, they usually want a degree of autonomy, a sense of pride, of ownership, along with someone to call for help when they need it. A current state value stream map doesn't solve problems. It helps people find and prioritize problems and gather clues and evidence to why the problem occurs. A future state value stream map then portrays what the team wants the process to be, illuminating the continuous improvement journey to get there. As we've discussed, an organization is comprised of many value streams and shared services, and this view can be more complicated to map. We're not going to show you such an organization-wide map in this session. Let's just agree for now that skillfully designed management systems are needed to help everyone align their activities and balance their resources. And horizontal value streams are the key value delivery mechanism and thus the foundation pieces that are guided by it. Like many key practices in Lean, value stream mapping originated at Toyota decades ago, and it has evolved ever since. The first book to document and teach this practice was Learning to See, which examined the flow of an automobile assembly value stream from start to finish. A few years later came Seeing the Whole, which used the same mapping technique to examine global supply chains comprised of many organizations' value streams flowing together. The important point I want to make here is contained in the title of both these books, that we need to see value streams to understand them. Visualization is a key part of the journey, and it's a key element of the Lean and Agile management system. Before we move on from this slide, I'm not necessarily recommending you read either of these two books. Many others have been published since that continue to elaborate and evolve the practice of value stream mapping and the office in healthcare, technology, and so on. Here's a learning link to one I particularly like, which provides a leadership perspective. Karen Martin's How to Visualize Work and Align Leadership for Organizational Transformation. This is a 1.5-hour video from a webinar Karen presented 10 years ago. Now that we've explored the various dimensions of alignment, let's return to the Lean and Agile management system and explore how it works in a little more detail. In basic terms, a Lean and Agile management system creates a holistic and adaptive framework for the entire organization, using rapid sense and response feedback loops at each organizational synapse. It's comprised of standard work practices that help keep the work and the information and communication flowing. When an organization starts to shift to a Lean and Agile management system, something surprising often happens, almost naturally. People begin to realize they're spending less wasted effort and energy on things that don't add value, and the overall situation tends to stabilize, and they'll usually insist that they never want to return to the old way. To understand what's happening, I'll turn to Dr. Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and examine his urgent important matrix. According to Dr. Covey, most people spend their time and energy focused on urgent and important issues. This is also known as firefighting. Although it's necessary when conditions are unstable, it's very stressful, not sustainable, and doesn't promote continuous improvement. It's often just a running firefight to keep problems from getting out of control and becoming disasters. We'll explore stabilization in Part 3, what it means, what it looks like, and how to do it with various types of problems. Dr. Covey suggests that we should spend our time focused on important things that are not urgent. In other words, whether we're a senior leader or a frontline worker, we need to be proactive, solving and preventing problems. Here are some basic principles that characterize a lean and agile management system. Note these all describe general behaviors and mindsets aligned with True North, and it's guided by leadership. When I'm talking about specific standard work for senior leaders and managers, I'm talking about leadership as a role. But when talking about leadership as a mindset, it's practiced by everyone, especially at the front lines. When everyone in the organization takes personal responsibility to do their best and has a degree of autonomy in how they do it, with the support to stretch and improve each day, they lead by example, and in turn they reach out to others, helping them to learn and develop. That's leadership in the truest sense, far beyond your formal role or your job description might suggest. With these two perspectives on leadership, both the role and the mindset, let's consider several common leader standard work practices that enable the lean and agile management system to work properly. This list is in no particular order, but to start, we'll examine the importance of visual management because it creates a cognitively stimulating and rich environment for collaboration and learning. Many of us have heard the popular old saying about a fish and water. Does it even know there's water, or is it just reality it's swimming through? The same can be said about visual management. It really is like the air we breathe when we do it every day. When you take a walk around any lean and agile workplace, you'll see visuals everywhere and teams actively working with them. They're making the invisible visible, learning to see and respond quickly to what matters to them. Let's see how fast your mind figures these visuals out. How about this one? I suspect that didn't take long. How about this one? This one is called a run and control chart, which we'll learn about during the exercises. Even though you have no idea what this process does, can you see a story unfold in this image using no words at all? Effective visual management helps everyone see the flow and problems that get in their way so they can eliminate them. And it helps everyone else around them, leadership, managers, and members of other teams, walking around, observing reality at the front lines, attending a team stand-up or huddle to see and understand what is going on without interrupting anyone on the team for an explanation. In fact, it's especially helpful for leaders and managers to make it a regular practice to just walk around. Why do you suppose that is? Because one of the characteristics of traditional management systems and a style of management is that senior leaders and managers are often separated from the actual work that's done. Many organization cultures solve problems and make decisions in offices and conference rooms using elaborate PowerPoints, spreadsheets, and sophisticated electronic dashboard systems. They use this information to formulate strategy from the top down. This strategy is based on abstractions from reality, which naturally lead to distortions, biases, wishful thinking, and bold ideas that often persist even when they meet with a reality that insists otherwise. What's worse, the settings for these meetings often make it impossible or unsafe for people close to the problems to express their concerns, to ask real questions, and to provide evidence and differing points of view. As Jim Womack said, problems can only be solved where they live by those living with them. Managers that want to support their teams must therefore go see the situation for themselves. So here are 3 terms you're likely to encounter again on this learning journey. The first is Gemba, a Japanese word that means the place where it happens. This can mean either where the work is performed or where a particular problem occurred. In this case, a Gemba walk is similar to a crime scene investigation where you're looking for evidence of what really happened. But the goal is not to capture and punish the guilty party, but simply to prevent the problem from occurring. Genshi Gembutsu means go see for yourself. This is often called a Gemba walk, or a waste walk, or a problem walk, where people actually walk a process looking for problems. They can do this physically or virtually if necessary. To overcome our preconceived ideas and understand what's really happening, we must observe the conditions with our eyes, ears, head, hands, and heart. There's an important phrase to remember when taking a Gemba walk. Go see, ask why, show respect. I want to offer a word of caution, especially when you are starting to do Gemba walks. When a senior leader enters the room, everyone's behavior changes instantly. Count on it. At this moment, you're not seeing reality. You're seeing whatever the prevailing culture wants you to see. The most important thing right now is to build trust, psychological safety. Help people understand you're there to learn and help. When leaders and managers aren't able to change their mindset and behavior on Gemba walks, this can kill a cultural transformation before it gets started. So remember, go see, ask why, show respect. You're not there to solve their problems for them. You're there to learn. And you do that by observing respectfully and asking questions to help you better understand what's going on, the problems they're dealing with, how they're dealing with them, and if they need support in some way. Help them learn to trust you. Everyone should go to Gemba anytime they need to understand what's happening. In addition to spontaneous visits, however, Gemba walks should be part of the normal rhythm and routine, especially for leaders and managers. But it can help for frontline workers to walk their process and to see other teams' processes from time to time as well. A formal Gemba walk is standard work, a key part of the management rhythm and routine, not to be done randomly or casually. It should be done properly and consistently over time so you can see trends, develop supportive relationships, and watch individuals and teams develop over time. Here are a few simple visual guidelines for how to conduct a Gemba, a waste, or a problem walk. And here's a learning tip to a particularly good article on this subject. The important thing for now is to understand the right mindset. This is not something you do once your real work is done. This is your real work, especially as leaders and managers become coaches. As you observe lean and agile organizations and their visual management systems in action, you realize that visual management is more than just slapping some images up on the wall. It's very purposeful. What you present in a particular work area, how you present it, and how you work with it are essential, and that takes learning and practice. For example, effective visualization at the team level helps to keep everyone informed and keep the work flowing while preventing wasteful meetings, status reports, and interruptions. And the flow of interlocking visual management across an organization, from the front lines to senior leadership, creates the conditions for a rapid sense and response network. The overall visual approach is called Obeya, a Japanese term that means big visual room. An Obeya should reflect the work the team does, and the possibilities are endless. While I like to encourage each team to do what makes sense to them, there's also a value and consistency among Obeyas across an organization. When anyone stops by to look at the wall, there's a basic sense of orientation and structure. This is another example of the balance between local autonomy and organizational alignment and flow. Without going into too much detail, here's a basic structure that I have found particularly useful to guide everyone in the layout of their Obeya, which leaves plenty of flexibility for each team to present what's meaningful to them. A strategy section can provide reminders to the team of the strategic intent of the organization and the specific direction the team intends to go. An operations section helps keep the work flowing. This is where you're likely to see the most charts and trends presented. If it's a project team, the focus may be a Kanban or Scrum board. If it's a logistics team, it may be a Kanban-style board reflecting the movement of materials, people, and so on. The portfolio section may provide a deeper look at workload balancing and priority management, creating a transparent framework to make difficult trade-off decisions. The improvement section could contain the problem board and artifacts of active problem solving and improvement activities underway and planned. Finally, the housekeeping section may contain calendars, team rosters, birthday lists, event notices, pizza coupons, and so on. Now let's do a virtual Gemba walk of our own. Here's an example from years ago when I visited Group Health, a health management organization in Seattle, Washington that was widely known for their highly evolved lean and agile management system. The rhythms and routines of their daily, weekly, and monthly standard work at all levels of the organization appeared to be consistent and always being fine-tuned. The leadership not only promoted this mindset and practice throughout the organization, they practiced it themselves. They led by example. Now, this was a very challenging time for healthcare organizations in the United States, and group health had more than its share of challenges and disruptions to deal with. But they were able to minimize the amount of self-inflicted challenges so they could focus their time and energy on their operations. One point they emphasized was that the further up the management hierarchy you were, the more time you invested not in doing your own work, but supporting the improvement work of the part of the organization you were responsible for. Think about that. Supporting improvement is the work of leadership and management. This had a dramatic effect on how leaders and managers spent their time. Here's a before snapshot of a leader's calendar. Notice this schedule is full of short meetings and looks pretty chaotic. Now here's an after snapshot. Standardized, consistent, stable, repeatable work. Now at any time, in an emergency, leaders could pivot, go to Gemba, and help the organization focus on a particular problem. And then they could return to their regular cadence of leader standard work. Here are 2 more virtual Gemba visits in case you'd like to see more. Here's a link to a YouTube video by a senior leader of Nike's supply chain technology group on the evolution of their Obeya practice. And here's a link to a chapter we published several years ago in a Shingo Prize-winning book on DevOps, an approach to integrate lean and agile efforts to accelerate innovation. This chapter examines the journey of ING Bank's global internet technology organization as they mobilized for their strategic digitization effort. This chapter provides a comprehensive overview of what the emergence of a lean and agile management system looks like and some of the key lessons they learned along the way. Now let's put all the pieces of this management system puzzle together to help you understand how we create a living, breathing sense and response network. The overall approach we're describing is called Hoshin Kanri, which in Japanese means shining needle or compass. A popular English term for this practice is strategy deployment. This approach emerged at Toyota in the 1960s, and it was their adaptation of management by objectives, a popular method at the time. But where traditional MBO was more a command and control, reach your goals and we'll reward you approach, the very fabric of management at Toyota was based on autonomous problem solving. The synaptic communication activity at each interface in the organization is called Catchball. Yes, this is an English term. Remember that the Japanese were very fond of baseball. Catchball is a regular dialogue where the manager and the team set targets, measure their results, reflect and learn from recent events and experiments, and guide the way forward. This also serves as feedback to leadership to learn about the validity of the strategic plan as it meets daily reality. Catchball may happen at different frequencies across the organization. At the front lines, this catchball dialogue with a manager may happen weekly and roll up through several layers to senior leadership once a month. In fast-changing industries like high-tech, catchball may happen daily at the front lines and cascade all the way to senior leadership weekly. As leader standard work, the catchball cadence should happen regularly, but anytime this well-practiced chain can suddenly be activated to address a critical situation, quickly escalating to senior leadership if necessary. I'll share more on how this works and what it looks like in Part 5, Additional Topics, in a section called Problem Management and Escalation. Here's a creative way to illustrate the catchball sequence of cascading targets using cute little Lego characters, a fun theme that's popular in the global kata community. See how the chain of catchball connects senior leader strategy all the way down to a machine operator on a factory floor. While these little Lego characters are shown in a manufacturing setting, I'm sure your imagination can take you to wherever your front lines are and whatever type of work they're doing. Here's another illustration of the cascading catchball dialogue, showing this target setting practice using the form and basic steps of the A3 problem solving method that we're going to use in the Part 4 exercise. The target condition at the higher level frames the problem to be broken down and solved at lower levels as it cascades from senior leader strategy to frontline execution. Here's one more view of a cascading problem using the A3 method, but this is different. This illustrates problems branching into subproblems, which is quite honestly how it usually happens with most types of problems, something we'll explore in Part 3. Note in this illustration, the top-level problem is broken down into 3 potential causes, each owned by a separate team. These are broken down further and cascade to other teams across the organization, and so on. This is as far as we're going to go in this session on the patterns and mechanics of Hoshin Kanri, but as you can imagine, there's plenty more to learn out there if you want it, and I've left you many learning tips to explore. Before I finish here, I want to mention one more thing, a popular new management system that emerged in the high-tech community several years ago, and you may encounter this out there. It began at Intel Corporation and has been popularized by Google. This method is called OKRs, which stands for Objectives and Key Results. When you look at the structure of OKRs, it looks virtually identical to Hoshin Kanri, which after all was originally patterned after management by objectives, which was popular in the 1950s. But I've been engaged with several large-scale organizations that happen to be deploying OKRs, so I'll point out a key difference. OKRs appear to work like Hoshin Kanri, with daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly cycles. The quarterly cycle is often called the QBR, the Quarterly Business Reviews, which is a major milestone event to examine how each part of the organization is meeting its goals. It's a very challenging experience filled with a great deal of work, quite a bit of stress, and some fear and disruption. And it gets in the way of doing the regular work, so there's plenty of catching up to do once the QBR is over. As we've explored, the key to Hoshin Kanri are the synaptic target setting and problem solving practices that continuously act throughout the organization. When I see OKRs deployed, it's without an emphasis on this as a practice. Yes, problem solving may occur in some way to the extent that it's always been common practice in the organization, but I've not seen it included as an integral part of the journey of continuous improvement. Thus, OKRs often seem to me a popular new way of dressing up the old command and control, top-down goal and reward mindset and process. Now let's begin wrapping up this session with a few closing reflections. Since I don't have you in a room with me as I attempt to illustrate how this all comes together, I can't tell how well I'm communicating, how well you're following it, and you can ask a question. So please forgive me if I emphasize something that you probably see and understand already. These target setting, problem solving, and learning feedback loops at each organization synapse are the catchball process, and taken together, they form the management system pattern and daily practices called Hoshinkanri. Effective problem solving from every person and every team in the entire organization every day is what makes this work. So now it's my turn to ask a question. How could it be any other way? If you want to empower every employee, harness their energy, their creativity, and their passion in a sustaining way that develops capability, how else would you do it? Now that we see the big picture of the Lean and Agile management system and all the forces that make it work, there's one important point left to make, perhaps the most important point. People make this all happen. Toyota has a famous phrase. They have a lot of those, you've probably noticed, but this one is especially worth remembering. We build people before we build cars. This statement is fundamental to their values, their way of working, and their culture. It's often said that a pillar of Toyota culture and way of working is respect for people, and that's true. In fact, here's an illustration from Toyota's own internal coaching material. But many people misunderstand what this respect truly means. During a presentation in 2012, Pierre Massai, Chief Information Officer for Toyota's European and Middle Eastern region, presented a conference session on the overall Toyota management philosophy. Here's a link to that video, and it's worth watching. Though he was a senior Toyota executive, he was working on his PhD, and this was his topic. So his presentation about Toyota's culture and management system were very broad and reflective. In this presentation, Pierre stressed that Toyota respects people and treats them with thoughtfulness and fairness. But they don't pamper or overprotect them, they challenge them. From Toyota's perspective, every employee is there to do their best every day to stretch for the next higher level of performance. So working at Toyota is not easy. In fact, during the presentation, Pierre remarked that an employee may go home and say to their spouse, "It was a rough day today. I got a lot of respect." Respect is hard work at Toyota because they have to earn it every day. To do any less is to disrespect their colleagues. So they take great care to hire the right people, providing them with coaching throughout their career, helping them set ambitious targets and learn as they develop. That's respect, Toyota style. And isn't that what we really mean when we say we want to empower people to help everyone make a contribution to the mission of the organization? One of the key elements that Pierre emphasized in Toyota's culture is Hoshinkanri. This is how respect and accountability is maintained on a daily basis. This visual is from his presentation, and there's nothing new here that we haven't already explored in this session. Privately later, Pierre remarked about the perception people have about Toyota as something special, saying, "People think we do this flawlessly at Toyota. We don't. Every day we struggle with it. Every day we learn something from it, but that's only natural when you're stretching and growing every day." Like I said a few minutes ago, how could it be any other way? We're now done with part 2. And to summarize, here's the diagram that I feel is the best way to show what alignment looks like and how it works. You may be able to do a better job framing this diagram to the context of your organization, your culture, and your terminology, and I encourage you to try. While this picture may be worth 1,000 words, it's taken at least 1,000 words in this session to explain the many details that do not appear in this picture. So if you remember just one thing, let it be this: skilled problem solving, rhythm, and routine is the core of this organization-wide culture of continuous improvement, innovation, and learning. And it relies on people to do it every day, keeping the organization aligned and moving forward. It's a never-ending journey, which is why we call it a practice. If you work for or with an NGO, it's likely you have a special passion, a high degree of purpose, mission, service to humanity associated with your true north. And this is a practice that can help you get there better, faster, and with less effort. Now that we've examined the organizational context around problem solving, we're ready to explore the different types of problems you're likely to encounter and how to approach them in Part 3.